Stop it! Don't open that door!
One of my favourite genres of game is horror. I've always been obsessed with them since I was a kid. But having played so many horror games over the years, I've become numb to the scares. As well as most horror franchises being turned into action games didn't help. But recently, with the rise of indie games, we've had a plethora of horror experiences rekindling people's love for the genre. So let's take a closer look at what a game needs to do to scare me. First of all, let me tell you what I mean by scared. I'm not talking about jump scares or looking at some grotesque monster that most horror titles rely on. These can give you a quick adrenaline burst for a second or so, but once it's over, once you've had a good look at the monster, it no longer leaves you with any sort of lingering fear. And that's going to be the key word for this video: fear. How can a game make you fear playing it? What would it take to make you hesitate to pick up the controller and carry on playing? Well, it's actually pretty simple. It's familiarity and confusion. For me, these two elements are the biggest factors in creating fear in a video game. Well, let me explain. When you're given a play area that's restricted in size but expansive enough to explore, you end up after playing for a little while learning the layout of the area. But if there's a slight alteration, so slight that you can question whether or not anything has changed, by being subtle you can build up an irrational feeling of dread in a player, to the point where turning off the game seems to be like the best plan of action. Let's take a look at a few examples that I think did this particularly well. In PT, you're given 3 rooms to explore. The first room that you wake up in, the hallway, and a bathroom. On first glance, there's nothing much going on here, just the average atmospheric sounds and whatnot. Then you walk through the first door and find yourself back at the start of the hallway. This is the start of the confusion. It makes you question what's going on, even to whether the game's glitched or broken. As you carry on exploring and getting to know the place that you're in, the game will slowly start changing things. It could be a picture on the wall, the colour of the lights. Individually, these things wouldn't be a big deal, but after playing in the same area for so long, just to have tiny things changed around you makes you even question yourself as to whether or not anything's actually changed, or if you're just imagining things. But then, when they kick up the confusion a few more notches, the corner that you've become familiar with turns into more of an enemy than a part of the background or the layout of the level. Looking behind you almost becomes a dare, and if simply moving your character becomes hard to do because of fear, then you're onto a winner. Another good example of this is the first Resident Evil, especially the remake. You walk around the same mansion slowly revealing more and more, making what you thought you already knew something completely alien. Like the trap room with the shotgun. What before was a harmless room now becomes a death trap, because being used to what you've previously done didn't prepare you for the ceiling to start lowering until you're dead. Even better, the game doesn't give you a clear way out of the situation, with both doors being locked in some cases. The fear created by this moment the first time you experience it can be pretty intense. That's until Barry comes and saves you anyway. But then another good example of the Resident Evil remake are the Crimson Heads. These guys are previously killed zombies that come back to life after a period of time, but are now stronger and faster. These guys come completely as a surprise, and their intensity alone will frighten you. But the real fear comes when you realise that every single zombie that you've killed up until this point can potentially become one of these things. So the mansion that you've spent the last few hours learning like the back of your hand becomes a completely different place, making you worry about what's around every corner that you've already been around numerous times before. This effect is also helped by the fixed camera. As much as people hate this kind of camera angle, it plays directly into developers' hands by them being able to hide things from view until the exact time that they want you to see it. Resident Evil 7 took it a step further by changing the view to a first-person perspective and introducing a family that come after you, keeping you on the edge the entire time you're walking around the house. Because these guys don't play by the rules, they can grab you at almost any moment. It's the tangible fear of being stalked by the very people that have captured you in the first place that is a genuine fear for something that could genuinely happen in real life. The feeling of desperation in these situations can make you run in a panic to get away from the bad guy. But then, just to realise that there was something important in that room that you just ran through and you got no choice but to go back and get it.
Open the tower transit immediately.
Apollo transit reserved for Sikhs and executives and synthetics only.
Right, then I'll have to find a way to talk to Apollo directly.
Biocontainment hazard level Omega. All permissions rescinded.
I don't have time for this.
Alien Isolation put you on a spaceship that's seemingly lifeless apart from the androids and obviously the alien that's on board. At first, the androids are no more than assistants just carrying out their job, until all of a sudden, they ain't no more, making the once harmless walking toasters into walking death machines. But the real fear comes when the alien is around. It doesn't matter how well you know your way around this ship or how good you are at navigating maps, because the alien has its own routes and its own map that you can't see or you can't access. This leaves you with the option to use your own senses to find the alien and avoid it, leaving you open to attack. Or you can use the heart monitor to find the exact location at the risk of it hearing the bleeps that the machine makes, leading it straight to your location at a crazy speed. This alien can hear every move that you make, down to even being able to hear you breathing when you're hiding. This game makes any part of the surroundings a potential threat, no matter where you are, whether it's the floor, walls, the ceiling, they could all be potential threats, and it really makes you think before you move. Five Nights at Freddy's is another really good example of building tension. I know the main draw to the game was the jump scares, but if you look at the process that leads to the jump scare, that's where the true horror is. Think about it, you're staring at the same monitors over and over again in anticipation of something to change. When it does, you're in no immediate danger, but your brain goes into overdrive, and you start to fluster and panic, which can lead to you overlooking something, like how much power you have left. Just the sight of a static image on the camera feed is enough to stir up the feeling of dread that goes back to my point about familiarity. You've gotten so used to what the camera should be showing you that as soon as it makes any change at all, as harmless as the change may be, it still puts you into panic mode, almost as if your senses are heightened. The way that the game puts you on the edge of your seat until the jump scare, or the relief of seeing the sign that tells you that you've made it through the night, is where the true horror is with this game. Now for the most unique of the bunch, and I'm going to talk about Eternal Darkness. It's figured out a way not only to scare you, but to make you question your own sanity. When playing this game, you've got your average monsters walking about, you've got your spooky houses, and all the stuff to check off the list. But the genius of this game is how it plays with the player's mind. What other games have you played where the game can suddenly make your limbs just randomly fall off, or change the controls for a few seconds, or give you a blue screen of death like a PC, making you think that the game has crashed? The way that the game plays with your mind is amazing and keeps you guessing the entire time you play through it. But one of the best examples of Eternal Darkness that I can think of so far is so simple but so effective, by making it look like the channel on your TV has changed. On the surface it doesn't seem like much, but put yourself in the position of playing the game alone, in the dark, on your own, and then all of a sudden the channel changes on your TV. If this was your first time playing the game and not expecting such a thing to happen, it can make you feel as though you have an intruder in your house in real life fucking with you. Notice that the examples that I've been given are not jump scares or anything that's really visual. What it is though is the build up and anticipation to what could happen rather than what's actually happening. In games that work like this, you'll find yourself in many cases fearing things like opening doors and turning corners, not because of what's around the corner, but the fear of what could be around the corner, with many cases building you up to absolutely nothing, which can sound bad on paper, but the real fear that you get from these tense moments is something that can only come naturally in the brain, rather than invoked by something that's trying to telegraph to you that it is scary. Fear is the only emotion that you can't control as a human, and being able to take advantage of it in many cases is a hard sell. But if you strip back what actually scares you in real life, like the odd sounds that you'll hear in the middle of the night in your house, or the fear of something happening that's completely out of your control, you can invoke that primal instinct within the player and make them feel true fear if you tap into what would scare them in real life rather than something that is artificially made to look scary. What you don't see can be a lot more scarier than what you actually see. Yeah, a monster can look as grotesque as you want, but if it's not grounded in reality, it'll come off as nothing more than a cartoon bad guy with cool and gross graphics. If you just replace the scary thing with the scary feeling, you'll win every time, because the player's fight or flight response will kick in, and this is the same feeling that compels certain players to turn the game off and just not want to carry on. And putting this into practice for the most part is what put horror games back on the map. And I'm talking straight horror, not none of these hybrid action games. And what's best is it didn't come from any big company with loads of money backing them. It came from indie developers that wanted nothing more than to scare the shit out of you. Well, I hope you enjoyed this closer look at what I think makes a scary game. Tell me what you think makes a game scary. I'd love to know. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video.